We interrupt our program and we're going live. The ALBA-TCP member states hold the 12th Extraordinary Summit. Let's listen.
Free Nicaragua, blessed and Christian Prime Minister of Dominica, our dear brother, Roosevelt Skerrit, our father, advisor, a guide, guru of the Caribbean, of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Philippe Pierre. Greetings to you in solidarity. Antigua and Barbuda, the plenipotentiary ambassador and ALBA coordinator, Art Anthony Liverpool, and St. Kitts and Nevis, Ambassador Nugent Wilson. In Grenada, the national coordinator and ambassador Hassan Hadid, and the Undersecretary for International Cooperation of the government of Xiomara Castro Cindy Rodriguez. Greetings to all of you. We have the Secretary General of the Bolivarian Alliance for the People of Our America, Brother Jorge Arreaza, also Vice President of Communication, Culture, Tourism of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, Alfred Nazaret Ñañez, Deputy Minister for Latin America, Rander Peña, for the Caribbean, Raul Lee, and greetings. I'm so happy, so joyful to be able to have a mechanism of follow-up.
Nuestro canciller Iván Gil.
Our foreign minister, who is in Suriname, in the meeting of foreign ministers of the meeting of the OTCA meeting of the Amazonian nations. They excluded us for various years in an arbitrary manner, as if Venezuela were not an Amazonian country. That is why I answered a Brazilian journalist that we are South American, Amazonian, Andeans, Latin Americans, and Caribbeans. You cannot prevent us from being from this blessed corner of our America. Today, we are holding this extraordinary meeting in order to review in a dynamic fashion the topics and make decisions. For instance, topics such as the implementation of the plan adopted on December the 14th, when we commemorated the 20th anniversary of ALBA.
20 years of experience, of a patrimony, a legacy
that has been totally in tune with the demands of today's life, 2025, of the current conjuncture and the geopolitics of today. The world is in an accelerating mood, and we have to keep pace with this speed, but we have to do it with quality. And we need to demonstrate once again, dear presidents, foreign ministers, co-chairs, we need to demonstrate once again our capacity, the capacity of ALBA to be at the vanguard of the struggles for sovereignty, dignity, equality, and the right to happiness, peace of our peoples. Today, we commemorate 230th anniversary of the birth of Mariscal de Ayacucho, the man who brought the standard of Pizarro as a trophy of victory vis-a-vis the Spanish Empire 200 years ago after the victory of Ayacucho, the standard of Pizarro. You saw it in our last meeting. So this is a struggle that's been there for many years and is marking all periods. And we are so proud of our mothers and fathers, our founding fathers and mothers. Recently in Havana through telesur, we are transmitting and broadcasting this via telesur and other national media in the various countries and through the social media, and all social media, Telegram, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook also. And in some countries, they're working with X. But today in Venezuela, X does not exist any longer. Okay, so we have to follow history and historical times, and we have the program, an agenda which is up to date. And if it's something we could say about ALBA is that we have updated our agenda. So the ALBA agenda should provide quick answers to our peoples and should be up to date with economic, social, productive, social, cultural, educational, social rights to health and life items. We need to consolidate peace through justice, through truth, growth, development, peace for and with development, with and for equality, peace for the highest possible happiness, as Bolivar said in the Orinoco, February the 15th, 1819. We've been working on this agenda. Some of these items have been already circulated among you. Therefore, we could start debating them, making proposals. Some topics under development, others that should be triggered very quickly. So first of all, we're going to deal with the topic of migration. Respect of human rights and dignity of migrant population. We need to address a topic which is on the table and is a heated part of a heated debate, and this topic need to deal with. We need to demand the respect towards our migrants, respect to their human rights and labor rights, and to ensure we need to ensure that they can come back to our countries in a dignified fashion so they become citizens fully integrated and fully productive in each one of our countries. This is a major topic that is in full swing right now, and our countries have been working on this issue. In Venezuela, we have the plan of coming back to the homeland. We've been working on this for 2 years now. And you know the reasons of Venezuelan migration and the reason for migration in other countries. The reasons are the criminal sanctions slapped on the social body and economic body of our country. This has been already debated with several leaders of the region, how sanctions hurt the economy of the country. Overnight, we lost 99% of the income. We went from $56 billion of income to only $700 million in income. And close to 2.5 million migrants left. Rander took this information to one of the International Migration Organization. And we need to say that this organization has become a tool against Venezuela, a nest of corruption, of bandits, and they have aggressed our country, and they have used this as a business to become wealthy. And President Duque in Colombia, they have been using this as a source of gain. So, so 1.2 million have come back, and we're trying to find the way to make sure that they can come back in a dignified manner so they can find a job. So we are working on this. So migration is our first topic, the respect of our peoples. This is a major issue, and this is a proposal. Presidents, co-chairs, prime ministers. The ALBA Bank is making a proposal, namely to create a system of loan for reinsertion of entrepreneurial migrants with a fund, according to this proposal, $10 million, a roving fund to address partially this situation, so the return of our brothers and sisters who had to migrate because of the sanctions, economic warfare, inequalities in the economy, the crisis of global capitalism, that we use this to generate positive economic activities to favor this returning population. Also, another major topic on the table is the dismantling of criminal gangs, coyotes, the coyotes gangs that traffic with people. This is another topic that we have raised in the latest conversations with the US. We have given fresh elements based on our research on the functioning of criminal organizations in trafficking with people, these coyotes organizations. And we hope that ALBA, with us, we can raise this request to the governments that have something to do with these topics. We need to organize and to work together with our security forces in order to control and defeat these organizations trafficking with people. In Venezuela, if we allow me, all of them are linked to the leadership of the extremist, corrupt opposition in Venezuela that we had to suffer over the last 7-8 years. And there we find the names of these bandits who have led this conspiracy against Venezuela. All of them have become rich because of these resources. For instance, let me tell you, they ask $10,000 of a migrant or $7,000. If they pay $10,000, they ensure that you can get to New York. And they have the ways and means to take you to Boston, Philadelphia, to the northeast part of the US. If you pay $7,000, well, you can go to Chicago or Atlanta. If you only 5,000, you only reach the border. If you pay only 3,000, they leave you on the Mexican side. And on top of that, we have the violations, abuses, disappearance of peoples. because of the actions of these criminal organizations. Therefore, ALBA is working on this topic, and this has to be on the table. Also, collectively, we are also working on the need to reaffirm Latin America and Caribbean region as a zone of peace, dialogue, understanding, and coexistence, and to raise the flag to save SELAC. We need to empower SELAC again and support the process of defense of sovereignty and peace of Latin America and the Caribbean. ALBA is a world champion of peace. It is an example to the whole of the continent of courageous defense of our sovereignty. In this regard, we are going to convene a political council of ALBA in one of the capitals. We need to agree on the venue so the political council could address these various issues. Also, based on the pending issues, we need to consolidate what we signed, namely the Agro-ALBA project, namely investments, distribution, land distribution, programming of the planting of this land, and to take up advanced concepts of productive agriculture, extensive agricultural procedures in the framework of using agroecological regenerative methods of land production. And heads of delegations, prime ministers, co-chairs, it is very important. There is a debate between the regenerative agriculture, agroecological, the organic production of organic products, and the destructive agriculture that use chemical fertilizers that destroy the land. But beyond that, they destroy human beings. Generate cancer, diseases of all sorts, dementia, early dementia, diabetes, early diabetes, affecting young people, hypertension. And when we address the causes, the poison used in agriculture and the processing of food using chemical additives. This is a very hot topic. We have functionaries that defend the use of these genetically modified seeds.
And I'm debating this here in Venezuela. Those who defend agrochemicals, this is a debate, but this is rather a fight, a combat
against the use of chemical products to grow food. So these are some of the steps we need to make in order to move forward. So we have early victories in rice production, of beans, beef, chicken, milk, vegetables, eggs, food production for ensure self-sufficiency of all the ALBA countries. So together, we have to export food to the world. This is a dream, but as Galeano said, what's the purpose of utopia? Well, the idea of utopia is to go just behind utopia and move forward in the necessary transformations. And this is very important. we are proposing the first AgroAlba Fair 2025. We need to find a venue for this fair. We're going to exchange productive experience and new businesses in the development of productive capabilities of our countries. And Mr. Loyo, our minister in the field of agro production, is Blue Alba, the Blue Alba, namely the development of our fishing and agricultural capabilities in the Caribbean together. ALBA, because the Caribbean belongs also to Bolivia, right, Lucho? To develop these fishing capabilities on agriculture, we have farms that could be created in many areas. So among the ideas we are working on is the creation of a fishing fleet for ALBA in order to expand our production, the sanitary certificates for production and export of fishing products. And the first encounter of scientists in the fishing and agriculture in ALBA, because we have many experienced scientists and experts in this field. So in the economic field, we have a lot of things that have been proposed and we need to implement. The commercial partial global agreements to move forward in a commercial zone, which is far more dynamic than the one we have today, and to global substitution of imports in order to strengthen our economies. Also, there is another topic, and I understand there are major progress. However, prime ministers, presidents, we need to take up this matter as well. Namely, to ensure that soon we have a framework agreement on ALBA transport, similar to the productive agro-ALBA agreement. This is a critical aspect for all economic and tourist plans, intra-ALBA plans. We need to have a meeting, a practical meeting among ministers responsible for transport matters in order to address how can we move forward toward an agreement dealing with maritime transport and air transport. We have made progress partially among several of our countries, but we have always insisted on a global vision, a global view, because transport is always a deal we need to resolve, and it has not been resolved yet, despite the effort we have made over the last years. We have there a number of important initiatives, and in the scientific and technological realm, there are many things that we are working on, and I conclude with this in my introduction to this work session, dear brothers and sisters of Latin America and the Caribbean, of the ALBA, of the peoples. So from we're going Central America, South America, Central America, and the Caribbean, everything together, glorious peoples in all this region. I mean, the topic of science and technology. There is a major topic which is essential. We are all working on those, and it is proposed to conduct a joint effort in ALBA to address the issue of artificial intelligence, the use of artificial intelligence, safe, sovereign artificial intelligence applied to all the elements of development of our societies, not only at the consultative level, institutionally or individually, but rather a field where we can plan together. We all have we know how to tackle AI, but this is a long reach topic. We need to have a quantum leap in the development of AI in order to assist in a quantum development of our countries in the coming years. So the proposal is to create, as soon as possible, a science and technology center on AI and free technologies, and this should be done together so we can integrate all the initiatives and progress our countries have been making in the field of science and technology and AI. So here are some of the major topics that we are proposing to you today, dear friends. ALBA over the last 20 years, and in this extraordinary summit, we want that together, always in an embrace, we tackle all the challenges ahead of us at the outset of this 2025 that has started very, very well. Good news for all of us. So, dear brothers and sisters, we are going to give the floor in order to initiate the exchanges in this 12th extraordinary meeting of the Bolivarian Alliance of the Peoples of Our America with a special guest, Honduras. So Havana is requesting the floor. Cuba, the free territory of America. Diaz-Canel, you have the floor.
Dear Nicolás, President of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, dear Luis Arce, President of the Plurinational State of Bolivia, dear Daniel Ortega and Rosario Murillo, Co-President of the Republic of Nicaragua, dear Mr. Skerrit from the Commonwealth of Dominica, dear Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and lastly, Prime Minister from St. Lucia, Philippe J. Pierre. Dear Excellencies and other representatives of our Bolivarian Alliance and our sister from Honduras, represented by the President Xiomara Castro. I believe the initiative from the Secretariat of ALBA is fundamental in order to exchange regarding the different challenges of our region. A few hours after taking oath, President of the U.S. ratified the list of states that are sponsoring terrorism without any real argument or truthful justification. They knew what it means for Cubans to be excluded from that list of states that sponsor terrorism. That's why we would like to thank you for all of the work we have done so we were eliminated from that list. It is something that had to be recognized by the previous administration of the U.S. Since they had recognized there was no argument or reason to keep us in that list. We must also take into account that this is not only regarding Cuba, but also all Latin America and their Caribbean, which are under a threat, and only with cooperation we can articulate and dissemble the actions that are behind that threat. Only a few years ago, we were witnessing such dangerous interference actions, and now the administration of the U.S. is intending to present those options to our countries, which is either to subdue us or make us instruments of their aggressions. And that's why the new administration has shown their dismissal and reaction toward Latin American and Caribbean countries through lies and manipulations. They use pejorative and racist terms and label millions of innocent citizens as threats only because they are Latin American and Caribbean. And they also have reaffirmed other decisions like the unilateral coercive measures. We believe that faced with such a panorama, we must discern between the rhetoric and the words of those figures. Only a few hours ago, in the World Balance Forum, we shared a crucial reflection on how we should act when facing such challenges. And I would like to quickly read something wrote by Jose Marti. Peoples nor men will respect the governments that do not respect themselves. We must continue moving forward to see if we resist or if we are weak. And that's why we must face those who dare to go against us. There's no one amongst us that should not resist, that we must endure together. End quote. So I think that with the guidance of Fidel, he used the thought of the thinking of Marti, which is filled with solidarity and anti-imperialism. We must not be provoked by the new administration of the US, and we must dismiss everything they want to impose. We must continue analyzing their actions and giving our responses when needed, the same way it was done by Fidel Castro, Hugo Chavez, and Raúl Castro. In the face of the current political panorama, we will see the worsening of different actions and circumstances between the US and Latin America. It is not just a theory. This has been explicitly expressed as a threat against our territory, as it has been done towards the Panama Channel and everything they want to do to rewrite the geography of our region. And that's where we can see the differences and similarities. During the first administration of Trump, we saw the polarization of the different structures, and a number of countries were designated in order to rebuild other structures according to their ideology. Let us not forget, and here I have some notes on that, that in the previous administration regarding migration, with Donald Trump between 2017 and 2021, they provoked and defended building the wall in the border with Mexico. They also fostered the zero tolerance and family separation policies, which separated children from their fathers in the borders. It also provoked the restriction of asylum seekers and protection programs, as well as the program that forced asylum seekers to stay in Mexico while their cases were being reviewed. It also reduced the number of asylum seekers that were staying in the US territory. And back then, they also intended to eliminate the DACA program, which protects the children that were undocumented and that entered the US territory when they were children. And this was then blocked by the courts. However, this is the example of their critical narrative against migration with the justification that they are a threat towards the safety and employment of US citizens. This, of course, had lots of criticism because it had a nationalist point of view trying to put the US first, as they claimed. Cuba wishes to see a regular, orderly, and safe migration that is aligned with human rights. We also defend the preservation of CELAC as a legitimate space for dialogue and political coordination of the countries of the region and maintain its principles, which is fundamental today. In the framework of ALBA-TCP, we shall have the strengthening of the economic agenda of each country. Now, going back to the issues related to migration, we would like to reaffirm our point of view. For us, it is unacceptable to have the aggressive deportation of citizens, the continuous violations of human rights, which are used as a political tool for blackmailing the countries of our America. Having a center in the North American military base in Guantanamo is a barbaric act. And of course, it is a threat to the national safety of Cuba because this is part of the Cuban territory and it goes against the will of our people and nation. It also has a torture center that has been condemned by the international community multiple times in the past. That's why we must have a dialogue of peace and understanding that needs all of our joint efforts. Deportation of migrants must be done within the framework of bilateral and multilateral agreements by safeguarding the sovereignty of all of our countries as well as the non-interference principles. All of the migrants from Latin America that went to the US are there because they wanted to address the needs that the economies of their countries were not able to do. And in the case of Venezuela, as President Maduro has said, because of the sanctions that have been imposed by that government. In the case of Cuba, they have offered a privileged treatment to Cuban migrants that go there, as well as the economic blockade and the maximum pressure policies that are completely depleting the quality of life of Cubans. This is not only an isolated issue, but a sample of the issues of the international community system, and this is also a sample of how selfish they are and the discriminatory policies that are being imposed, as well as other actions made by the Trump administration, like leaving the Paris Agreement, the World Health Organization, and within the environmental crisis we are facing, this will be a challenge for advancing towards that objective. That's why we must strengthen the responses we give from the South, as well as the coordination response from our region and our capacities to have consultation, and that's something we should address in this meeting. The concept of unity and diversity that has been expressed by Raul Castro in the past, as well as CELAC and other mechanisms of integration, are more valid than ever amongst the different attempts that have been done in order to divide us, which are fundamental for our nations, and the counter anti-imperialist offensive must respond in order to strengthen cooperation and dialogue. The strategic 2030 agenda of our alliance that has been approved by our head of a state in April 2024 in Caracas is an example of the efforts and the work of this organization in order to achieve new results. We welcome and support the ALBA initiative, with which we have a framework agreement on December 2024 that was undersigned in Caracas. And we must now work in the bilateral instruments that will allow us to ensure food security. If we evaluate the different issues of our countries, it is important to include the different elements of technology, of agroecology for food production within AgroAlba. Cuba has also made some contributions that, with a study that was ordered by Bank of ALBA, that will allow us to increase the national agricultural production, that will also facilitate trade amongst our peoples and economic complementarity. In order to achieve that, we must ensure air and sea transportation connection routes. Regarding AI, and here I have some notes regarding this issue. I believe that AI can be a transforming technology that can help the countries from the global south to achieve positive results if we use it in a coordinated manner. There are positive results regarding AI towards the advancement of medicine, of increasing productivity, innovation in services, contribution to sustainability, and contributions to education. However, the use of AI also have some concerns and challenges, like the issues of privacy and ethics, the impact on employment, the lack of transparency, and other existential risks. We in our country have approved a development strategy of AI that's based on ethics and aligned with our principles. And we also have a working system in order to support this strategy. We have human capital that's ready to work on this. And although we don't have an infrastructure yet, we do have different research centers that are working on these initiatives. We also have a few projects that we have developed for training and education regarding healthcare, agriculture, and we have also established some alliances with countries and international organizations for collaboration, and we understand the different limitations we have regarding infrastructure of our bloc. The announcement in Venezuela made last month, in December, in Caracas, in order to build a center, a research center in Caracas, would be very helpful to foster the advancement in this issue that will help us achieve our objectives. I believe if we work in this path with integration, with more unity, coordination, and more wishes to even rescue some of the projects that had a high impact on our countries. And if no one takes us out of that path, we will be able to achieve and materialize the dreams of many generations that have given their energy and actions to us. And that's the commitment we have with the peoples that are part of our alliance, and that's why we will continue working toward the victory. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Diaz-Canel, and solidarity greetings with the people of Cuba in the historical struggle for our right to independence, peace, and future, and the construction of our own models. To move forward in all these topics, we need to continue building these policies with capacity to act and have a concrete impact in this new stage of ALBA, where we have a shared vision, a joint vision, shared efforts to provide all the responses and to share all the capacities that we have. We always insist with our liberators. Thank you, Diaz-Canel, for this phrase of our apostle, Martí. No one respects those who do not make themselves be respected. And we repeat this on a daily basis. I want to have this full sentence of Martí, which is very actual, very pertinent in today's situation when we are fostering unity of Latin America and the Caribbean. It's been always demonstrated that ALBA is an element that unites all of us. And this magnet that ALBA is essential for this integrating and unifying view. I was talking to the General Secretariat, taking due note of the comments and decision made. And now we're going to listen to the proposals, ideas of the President of the Plurinational State of Bolivia, Lucho Arce. Bolivia, you have the floor. Thank you very much, President Nicolas Maduro. Greetings to brothers and sisters, head of state and government of the member states of the Bolivarian Alliance of the Peoples of our America, People's Treaty, Economic Treaty. We are attending this extraordinary meeting today, February the 3rd, as mentioned by the President of Venezuela, when we are commemorating 230th anniversary of the birth of Antonio José de Sucre, one of the best children of America, first President of Bolivia, and redeemer of the sons of the sun, as Bolivar said. Following the footsteps of the Marshal of Ayacucho in the ideas of justice, his respect for life and human dignity, we are gathered to address core issues to preserve freedom and stability of the alliance as a mechanism of cooperation and genuine solidarity among our peoples. The historical conjuncture in our region shows how complex are the challenges that we are facing that require comprehensive and collective responses. Our America is in the crosshairs of a superpower that wants to dictate through force the transit to a new world order. Migration is a manifestation of this process. Our states have recognized the need to implement strategies to promote a safe, orderly, and regular integration based on the engagement and commitments of the World Pact on Migration of 2018. However, beyond international accords, the true challenge is premised on the uh, the prevention of any criminalization of migration. We need to ensure a dignifying treatment to every person, protecting the human rights and the rights of the family. As an alliance, we should be the drivers at the multilateral level for the UN to declare migration as a human right. Migration is it's a process inherent to the development of humanity. We have had migrants from England towards the US, for instance, and they respond to economic, political, social, demographic, and environmental factors. In our hemisphere, migration fluxes are complex and demand cooperation among the origin, destination, and transit countries and return countries. So we ratify our commitment with international tools, such as the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations of 1963, guiding the protection of our communities abroad. Likewise, we recognize the wealth of diversity, and we welcome in solidarity brothers and sisters from various nationalities who have chosen Bolivia as their home. Unluckily, regrettably, over the last days, we have witnessed indignant the scenes of deportations from the US of women and men shackled that revive in our minds slavery, one of the darkest periods of our humanity. We cannot admit these clear violations of the right of migrants. Each country has the right to define their migration policies. However, we cannot ignore international agreements regulating human mobility and protect the security and dignity of migrants. From the Bolivarian Alliance of the Peoples of Our America, we need to reject these measures and to demand a respectful treatment and fair treatment to our connationals. From Bolivia, we reject the securitarian policies ignoring human right to free circulation recognized in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The world cannot be only a space where capital is the only one to circulate freely, but also human dreams should circulate freely. We condemn the propagation of this hate speeches and xenophobia against those who have contributed to the social and economic progress in many countries. In this context, we joined the protest of our brothers and sisters from Cuba, given the announcement of Trump to use the Guantanamo territory as a place to imprison migrants. The United States has an impact on these migration fluxes in the region as a result of the policies and arbitrary unilateral coercive measures applied against our peoples. Migrants play a major role for the development of countries, and most of the time, they generate many benefits to the recipient nation and also to origin countries through the remittances sent to their families and relatives. Also, we need to remember that we are free sovereign nations Therefore, we will not allow that our citizens are treated as delinquents, and we demand a dignified treatment. Given the importance of the life of people, how critical issue this is, all countries should resort to the established mechanism in the migration field. Peaceful dialogue is the way we can build migration policies with joint regional solutions. We are committed to peace, stability, progress, and the happiness of our peoples to live well. Another challenge that we need to address together is the food crisis of humanity. And we welcome the proposal of having a regenerative agriculture. We welcome that ALBA Bank can create a fund of loans for migrants that come back to our nations and resume their activities in their native nations. We also agree with the proposal made by President Maduro regarding the punishment of those gangs involved in these trafficking people, like the coyotes. And the Bolivian government supports, and we continue to do so, these initiatives that are going to protect our migrants, generate more food, and punish those who commit the crime of the trafficking people. In a world where technology moves forwards very quickly, that is the case of AI, we agree with the president of Cuba when he pointed out that this put in danger jobs and the use of free energies and other items. So we need to have a research center at the ALBA level to address the issue of AI, that on top of the connotations it has in many areas, such as saving time and other type of benefits that indeed it has. But we need to have a positive use of AI, namely to foster scientific knowledge and cultural, intertechnological exchange, promoting everything that in our countries is required in order to incorporate science and technology to serve human beings, production, to improve the quality of life of people, and then focus on a good life. So AI is not bad. However, we need to organize to properly use this tool in the different levels of education. We cannot deny technological progress. Young people use this technology as part of their own daily activities. All young people have a cellular phone. No one can avoid technology. That is clear. However, the use of technology should be appropriate. It should be focused to benefit the population, to improve their education, the development of health, so our societies can enjoy the necessary capabilities for us to insert properly in this world context. The proposals tabled are in line with what we should do as ALBA countries. We still have a lot to do, and as we are seeing, We know what is going on in China. There, they are developing their own artificial intelligence. So as ALBA, we could also try to have the capacity to generate our AI tools focused to help society to generate benefit, and it should not be used as a weapon to generate information to profit multinationals. It cannot be used to anticipate the needs of society. So transnational can use them to do business. We consider that AI should be used to improve society, to do good for society, and not as a capitalistic tool to become richer and more powerful. So we are clear that our region that has resisted to plundering, impositions, artificial borders created to divide what cannot be divided, today has the opportunity to demonstrate that unity is not utopia. These attacks, these aggressions are going to make it possible for all the countries discriminated against and attacked can truly unite and form this greater homeland that we need. This unity, as I said, is not utopia. It is a reality that should be built on a daily basis as countries committed to sovereignty. We need to strengthen our collective voice in order to transform diversity into a strength and to reaffirm to the world, as we've done in the past, that solidarity is a fundamental principle of our integration. The determination of ALBA nations and the resolution of 2014, where we declared Latin America and Caribbean region as a zone of peace. This is more valid than ever. Long live ALBA. Long live solidarity and complementarity among our people. Thank you very much. Long live.
Long live. Excellent. Greetings to you in a day of a birthday, an anniversary, 230 years of one of the founders of Bolivia, the first president during the foundation of Bolivia, times of glory that only lasted for a few years, but were able to transcend and are the spiritual force and the values that move us to make them permanent, the values of independence and the refoundation of our great homeland, the building of our great homeland, the ratification of our independence, sovereignty, right to peace, to our future.
And in order to unite the Latin American and Caribbean thinking, here I have the quote that was read by President Diaz-Canel.
Those who do not ensure respect will not be respected nor by countries or men. Those who dismiss us in their discourses and see us as a sure and desired trophy. That's why we must show them we're not afraid of them and we dismiss them. Jose Martí, 1894.
Those who do not understand what we are, what we're looking for, and what we are willing to do, as the people say,
Only a few words are needed for those who understand what's happening. But I would also add that firm ways of thinking from Latin America are as powerful. We must unite our creative capacity in order to advance. That's why we are ratifying migration as a human right and the defense of our migrants and their supreme protection above everything. AI is one of the most discussed issues of today. Also, social media, everything related to this I am holding. And that's why, as a people that aspire to continue building our freedom and independence, to be at the vanguard of technology. It is possible, it is possible. And that's why we must jointly study and unite efforts. Our greatest shield when faced to these challenges, our greatest shield against threats is union, honest, effective union, along with joint action that gives results in order to produce anything needed for all of us. ALBA must be the core of the future union of Latin America and the Caribbean, and CELAC is the daughter of ALBA, and we must save it by strengthening ALBA and broadening our political capacity, and of course, being able to show results so everyone is able to see that this is the way to rescue Latin America and the Caribbean. We must not be divided, as Bolivar said, because being divided, everyone for themselves makes us prey for colonizers and for the colonizers of tomorrow, of course. So studying, working, producing, and yielding results together is the best shield we have. Unity is the shield of our America. So we go from the heart of South America to the heart of Central America. And there we have the children of Augusto César Sandino, Carlos Fonseca Amador, the people of Sandino, and the blessed Christian government of the co-chair, co-president Daniel Ortega Saavedra. So you have the floor, Nicaragua. Thank you. Greetings, respect to the people of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. And for all of those who have been able to defend the dignity of that people, the people of Bolivar. From Bolivar to Chavez, from Chavez to Nicolás. And in this date of the birth of Sucre, which was pivotal in the struggle for the liberation against Spanish colonialism, Today, February the 3rd, 2025, this session, this meeting of ALBA, within a moment of struggle and battle as the ones that have been waged by our peoples in years of history. It is dedicated, this meeting is dedicated to Sucre. He is here with us, with his force, as well as Bolivar and Chavez. Sucre is here with us. And here we also have
Fidel with us, the founders of this alliance, Chavez and Fidel, Fidel and Chavez. And our solidarity
with the people of Martí, of Fidel, the people of Raúl, of our dear brother President Miguel Díaz-Canel, who has expressed what's behind the strength of the people of Cuba. It is a people that has resisted, and each day they continue resisting against the criminal blockade imposed by imperialists. These are the challenges humanity has faced throughout the years, faced with the peoples that want stability, security, education, healthcare. And that's when the imperialists of our planet come up, attempting to impose the chains, their chains to our peoples. And the battle, the struggle of Nicaragua that, as I was saying to Nicolas, during the days where he took oath, that here in Nicaragua, in 1855 and 1856, there was the occupation performed and carried out by the Yankee expansionists. They were bringing their ideology of the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, of slavery, mercenaries, colonels, and so on, of the southern area of the US. And they occupied Nicaragua. and they imposed themselves as presidents. We must never forget this, which is something we reiterate to our people. We must never forget that Yankees had a president in our country who assembled and organized an election by assassinating Nicaraguans. And he imposed himself, and in his inauguration, there was the ambassador of the US from the administration back then. So they were legitimating those who were imposing themselves. And he was also approving a decree for installing slavery in Nicaragua. And a few years before that, before 1821, when we got our independence from Spain, we had buried slavery. And this is when the Yankee came with his arrogance, with KKK governing, the Ku Klux Klan governing in Nicaragua. But the people of Nicaragua have been a struggling people filled with dignity, and this is when the battles against the Yankee invasion started, as well as the battles. And the indigenous peoples of Nicaragua also joined this struggle from a department that's in the center of Nicaragua. They came from Matagalpa to the south and joined the forces that were defending the sovereignty and dignity of Nicaragua. Even then, 200 years ago, waging the battle against the Yankee, it was a battle that had a great impact against those Yankees. It was the one that took place in the San Jacinto farm. In that estate, they were resisting the Yankee troops that were led by a colonel from the south of the US, Byron Cole. That's when the Nicaraguan combatants defending, and as Dario said, if our homeland is small, we must dream big. And that's why they were defending their homeland. And they were defeating the invaders. And that's when the Yankee colonel died. And that's when Sergeant Andres Carlos, that was entrenched in stone walls of that farm, and since they had no more ammunition, he used his rifle, which had to be loaded every time you wanted to shoot. The Yankee came and he took a stone and he threw a stone against him. And that's part of our history. That stone that was thrown against that Yankee. And that's why it has become a historical patriotic date that was respected even by Somoza. In which we commemorate in all schools and pay tribute to Andres, the hero that took that stone and threw the stone against the Yankee invader. And Walker, when they were withdrawing, they were going towards the ports of the Pacific, in which they were looking for ships from vessels that were sent from the US. And they set on fire the city of Granada. And they had a text on the walls in English that said, "This is where Granada stood." So the governors of the Ku Klux Klan only left ashes in Nicaragua after they were defeated and they were retreating. And that's when Nicaragua was also able to recover its sovereignty amidst the difficulties of the peoples that would then be independent. And that's when the political parties came and started to face each other, not only in the ballot boxes, but also with ballots, with guns. And amidst those conditions, it's when we witnessed here in Nicaragua a first revolution, the liberal revolution, that was led by the General Zelaya. And this revolution was transforming back then because we were subdued to the mandates of the US empire. There were some units here of the US troops. And since we were subdued to those troops, the political parties were looking for ways in order to be an instrument of the US, and others were looking for a way to give autonomy to our country. And this is when Zelaya came up, and he was the one who brought the issue of the channel for Nicaragua. Back then we were debating where the canal would go through Nicaragua or Panama. And it turns out that when Nicaragua was discovered, they found the path towards the Atlantic and the Pacific, towards the Lake of Nicaragua. And they were only a step to the Pacific Ocean. And the US citizens that were looking for passages, paths to go from the East Coast to the West Coast because of the gold fever. They started to use sea transportation, which was the ability of Vanderbilt, a very famous sea transportation businessman. He was the owner of different vessels, and he established the route from New York to Nicaragua. And afterwards, when he disembarked here in the Caribbean Sea, he moved towards the Pacific Ocean, and that's where another vessel of his company was waiting that was taking passengers to the west coast of the US and to the east coast. So that's what worked in the first place as a canal, taking thousands of passengers. And to be honest, those passengers didn't come here to damage us. It was just a temporary place for them to disembark before going to the east coast of the US. However, the US had decided these areas belonged to the US. They had already established those policies of America for the US, for the Ku Klux Klan. And that's when Zelaya started to promote building a canal, and he started to get in touch with European governments. And that's when we saw the fury of Ku Klux Klan. And an ultimatum was given in order to abandon the government. There were Nicaraguans that were willing to struggle on his side, but he decided to give the government in the hands of a weak man. However, that's when Benjamin Celedón stood up against those wimps and went against the Yankee Marines that were disembarking in the ports of Nicaragua. And he started to go along with the patriotic forces that were led by Benjamin Celedón. And when he was sieged in Coyotepe, which is a high territory that's 30 kilometers from Managua, and he was sieged by the Yankee troops, there was a delegation of the Yankee troops that were telling him they were going to arrest him, they were going to pardon his life, and that he should subdue to them. And the response of Celedón was extraordinary. And as Andino said afterwards, I will never surrender. I will never sell my principles. And that's when the struggle continued, and that's when Celedón was assassinated on October 4th, 1912. And they used the corpse of Celedón, and they showed them throughout the different villages to terrorize the villages. And that's when Sandino, when he was very little, he was embraced and he waved the black and red flag because the blue and white flag was being used by wimps. And he started struggling against the imperialists of our land. And in 1928, by continuing with the struggle of Celadon, Sandino with his small army, and according to official declarations of the reports from the State Department back then, the US had sent 4,609 soldiers from the Marines with an infantry battalion, and they had reported 45 injured men. Until the Yankees had to retreat, they were not able to make Sandino surrender. They couldn't assassinate him. They had to retreat. But by retreating, they now laid the foundation in order to assassinate Sandino because he was going after peace. And with the retreat of the Yankee troops, he felt he had achieved the objective. And some comrades told him, be careful because you have to go to Managua to negotiate with the government. And that's when he decided, I am committed with peace. We had already expelled the Yankees. And then after signing the peace agreements, the president invited him to a dinner. And when Sandino came down after the dinner, Somoza was waiting for him along with the Yankees to capture him and then assassinate him along with other brothers, two other brothers. And that's what Che said about Yankees and imperialists. You can never believe in them, not even a little bit. Because Sandino had defeated them. He trusted in the president back then because he didn't have a background of an assassin. He was just a wimp that was leading, and that's why the president then invited him to have dinner, and he didn't know that Somoza with the embassy here had a plot in order to assassinate Sandino. And those are the battles, the struggles. I must continue mentioning because history is the same. Ku Klux Klan is there in Washington. We have it now there in Washington. The thing is that sometimes Ku Klux Klan murders publicly without shame, and sometimes it is disguised as a saint, as a Democrat. That's how they use the dignity of the peoples. With Obama, we expected the reestablishing of diplomatic relations with Cuba, which was accompanied with backstabbing Venezuela by calling it as a threat to the security of the US. So they give you, they shake your hand, and then they backstab you. And then they expelled thousands of migrants. They were expelled by Obama, and he invented some cages to put them there. And he was advertised as a good president, as a kind president. Those are the same. Some act like Obama, and others have public threats. And that's the story of our peoples. That's the reality we must face. We must face that reality. How do we face such a reality? It's not about using guns because we don't have nuclear weapons, for example. If we had nuclear weapons, it would be a different story. Because those who have nuclear weapons are already protected, they are shielded. But we have a more powerful weapon, which is the awareness and dignity of our peoples. That gives way to having a government with men that are generous and solidary, like the eternal Supreme Commander Hugo Rafael Chávez Frías. And he is no doubt an anti-imperialist. However, he never thought about unleashing a war against the US or using guns. He, along Fidel, agreed to create ALBA to unite the Latin American and Caribbean peoples, starting to those people that were closer to us and had a greater level of difficulties and were continuously blackmailed by the imperialist superpowers, and to develop, to the benefit of those peoples, programs to address the needs of the people, to generate employment, production, to guarantee oil production. With the weapon of peace and generosity of Christ, who says you shall love your brothers as you love yourself. That's how Commander Hugo Chávez Frías behaved. And that's how our brother Nicolás Maduro behaves. They are looking They're not looking for ways to dominate, but rather to help, to present proposals and programs as the one we have in today's agenda that will happen along with the defense of the sovereignty of Latin America and the Caribbean, to demand the respect of migrants, respecting the human rights of migrants. And let's never forget what's happening in the US, because they didn't even know there were lands to the south. So that's when, from Europe, from England, they left Europe as migrants in dangerous circumstances, and they arrived in territories that did not belong to them. Who gave them that territory? No one. They just forcibly occupied that territory, and they assassinated their true owners, the indigenous peoples, in what today belongs to the US and Canadian territory. They were murdered, and they took over those lands. Those are the heirs that have governed the US. And that's why they now want to take over the planet. And that's why we agree with this agenda in order to have a consensus of common positions in multilateral spaces, the advancement in relations with other regional organizations, looking to expand the projects of ALBA, as well with all ALBA members, as well as other countries in the region of the Global South, because this is a human project in terms of economics, the expansion of AgroAlba project for food production, the trade agreement of our peoples, and the agreement of ALBA related to agricultural cooperation, in order to continue with the framework agreement that was the legal basis for the AgroAlba project to be presented to the different countries. And the advancements of the study, development of and use of artificial intelligence within ALBA countries. And our brother Diaz-Canel was explaining how they have advanced in this area despite the blockade, despite the policies that want to provoke the rejection of the Cuban people and go against their process. However, they continue standing up firm. Although there are some difficulties, but they continue looking for solutions and paths. And this is evident not only because of projects and proposals such as this one related to AI, in which they have facilities that we can share to advance in this area.
Nosotros,
We,
como bien se ha dicho aquí,
as it has been said today,
defender los derechos
we must defend the rights
de los ciudadanos de este planeta y en primer
of all citizens of our planet, and first of all, the citizens of Latin America and the Caribbean,
y expresar nuestra solidaridad con los pueblos
and express our solidarity with the peoples that are
que están siendo
being attacked
atropellados por la forma en que están tratando.
because of the way in which
Tenían años de estar
the
aceptados
migrants are being treated that
en Estados Unidos.
had been living there in the US for years. They had built
Tratando como
a new life, and they are now being treated as criminals, as delinquents. They are accused of being drug traffickers
sin ningún juicio,
without proof, without trials,
que digan
without
ciudadanos han cometido delito alguno.
a sentence that states that they have committed a crime. They are just being disqualified and then expelled aggressively from their territory.
Nosotros expresamos nuestra solidaridad con los
We convey our solidarity with the migrants that are being deported from the US,
días en que la actitud, esa actitud,
and the day will come when that trend and that attitude
antimigratoria que
that's
ha
anti-migration
exacerbado
that has worsened
desaparezca.
the day will come when that attitude disappears,
Lo que ha sido el aporte y lo que sigue
and the day will come when they
a la
will recognize the contribution of migrants to their economies, their productive sectors, because they need
país
those workers.
que son miles
They need
que
the labor from these migrants.
llega el día en que la voluntad de paz, de respeto a los derechos humanos,
And the day will come when the will for respecting human rights
se establezca también
and being human
pueblo norteamericano y sobre
will
todo
also
norteamericano.
install within the North American people and also within the North American politicians. So greetings to the always rebel Nicaragua, always victorious Commander Daniel Ortega. You have a David that defeated Goliath,
Y a los pueblos
symbolizing the people of Nicaragua and our America, David and Goliath. A question asked by President Noriega, how can we address the situations of today? We have plans for that. However, we need to resort to an atomic bomb, namely unity in action
with concrete results. Unity for liberation of our peoples. Unity to produce, as a Venezuelan revolutionary said in the 80s, 90s, to produce science, food, and dignity. Clever Ramiro, a great Venezuelan revolutionary, a great dreamer. Let's produce together science, food, energy, knowledge, and let's defend the transcendental values, heroic values of our Latin American and Caribbean identity in practice. With all the capabilities we have,
We spoke about the strengthening multilateral coordination. Well, we need a Bolivarian diplomacy of peace together to defend our countries against so many aggressions, to defend us, defend our region. Therefore, it is crucial to resort to an atomic bomb. Unity in action with concrete results, and only ALBA has demonstrated along its existence and will continue to demonstrate into the future. Solidarity within ALBA should be measured by results, and unity should be measured by concrete results. Therefore, I insist, brothers and sisters, I insist on the spirit of the historical summit of December last, the spirit that prevailed there to move forward the project in all fields, to produce in AgroAlba, Alba Blue, to produce knowledge, to relaunch educational programs, health programs, to refound, to relaunch all the capabilities of ALBA as a great driver, a magnet of this region. Now, we need to move forward as is being proposed in a framework agreement on transport. ALBA Bank has a concrete proposal in this regard in order to purchase vessels, airplanes. So we have our own tools for sea transport and air transport, cargo, etc. And there will be some announcement by the ALBA Bank. Some of the funds will be available to finance these projects in the framework of what we have been debating regarding integration in the sea and air fields. Regarding AI, we are forced, as Bolivia President and Cuban President said, reiterated by the co-president of Nicaragua, President. We need to create a center of artificial intelligence of ALBA, integrated, so we move forward together with the knowledge, the legacy, the progress, and this should have an impact, a major impact. I have a study here, and I'm going to share you through our private networks, a platform of sovereignty in the field of AI, a sovereign AI to foster development, to protect our peoples, and to move forward into high technology. Those who lag behind in this field, they will get closer to slavery, because dependence will lead us to slavery, a new type of slavery. These are the fresh challenges of the 21st century. They are talking about super artificial intelligence, and we have witnessed recently impressive phenomena in the geopolitical and geoeconomic and geotechnological battle in the field of AI. And not even UN and the rotten OAS, not a single multilateral organization has proposed to develop together AI. Only one, December 14th, 2024. ALBA has been the sole multilateral organization promoting this. So let's move forward, Commander, as you said. Let's move forward in the progress of our agenda with the humanist projection and simultaneously and comprehensively refounding and relaunching everything within our organization. From Central America, we went to Eastern Caribbean, we went to South America, Central America, and now the Eastern Caribbean now. And there we have our guru, our guide, our leader, Ralph Gonzalez, with the floor. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Comrade President, colleague heads of state and government. I'm very happy that this meeting was called for us to discuss a very complicated situation generally and to see what specific actions we can take together in making the lives of our people much better, our lives, our living and production much better. Now, if I begin by making some general preliminary comments, it is not the first time that we have seen historically that monopoly capitalism has expressed its contradictions through national factions. We are seeing now an outpouring of nationalist dimensions, even populist dimensions of the contradictions in monopoly capitalism. It is reflected in the MAGA movement in the United States of America, and specifically, it is manifesting itself through the impositions of tariffs and responses by governments to the impositions of tariffs. What we are seeing here will create further instability and contradictions in the global economy. And it is not going to be very easy for us in the developing world to cope with the knock-on effects of the contradictions of the nationalist factions of monopoly capital. Now, we have had, since the rise of modern globalization, we have had undercurrents of a reaction against a uniform global monopoly capitalism. And the failures of that unified global capitalism, in fact, the impossibility of having it coherent, has brought about very sharply these nationalist factions, as for example, in the MAGA movement, but we see it to a greater or lesser degree in every single country in the developed world. Now, the tariffs are going to create an increase in the price of commodities and services which we consume, which we import from these various countries. And it is going to make the situation more difficult for our own people pressures are going to be put on currencies, and we may well see that the knock-on effects would lead to lots of instability in the periphery of the global capitalist framework, the periphery meaning the hinterlands, those occupying the space of developing countries. Now, explicitly, part of that nationalist bundle of contradictions is made manifest too in an enhanced nativism and for the removal of certain categories of migrants. It's all part and parcel of the same process of the broad set of contradictions. Now, what is to be our reaction to the subject of migration as it is on our agenda? The government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines has spoken publicly already, and we have made essentially 4 points on this issue from our own perspective. The first is that juridically, the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is obliged to receive any national of our country who is deported or repatriated from, say, the United States of America or any other country from which they are deported or repatriated. And once that is done in accordance with that country's internal legal processes and consistent with international law. So if then any of our nationals is to be sent to St. Vincent and the Grenadines from the United States, repatriated, deported, we will receive them, and we are obliged to receive them. But those processes must be consistent with international law. In other words, you can't have domestic legal processes which do not meet certain minimum standards of international law. And we accept that in the United States of America, those internal legal processes meet the minimum standards of international law. The second is that the sending state, in this case, the United States of America, is obliged to ensure that any national of St. Vincent and the Grenadines who is being deported or repatriated be accorded all the elemental rights. And even if you have your processes completely legal in accordance with international law, when you're deporting them, or when you're holding them for deportation or repatriation, you have to do it in a manner, and the United States of America would be required to do it in a manner which is not oppressive, and where humanitarian law, international humanitarian law is embraced. And thirdly, the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines expects that any sending state which is deporting or repatriating any of our nationals to provide to us all relevant information, including the antecedents touching and concerning that person's prior criminal conduct. Lots of the deportees are not going to be criminals, but a significant number of them are likely to be persons who have left St. Vincent and the Grenadines when they were small, when they were children. Some would have left there 30 years ago, left here 30 years ago, and they may now be in their 40s or 50s. What has been happening, and we in the Caribbean community have been asking that the countries, whether it's Canada, whether it's the US, whether it's Britain, anybody, any country which is deporting or repatriating our nationals, look, we need to know their background. We need to know their biography. Not because somebody was charged for burglary and you send them home after they have been found guilty for burglary, that you don't tell me what they've done before. They might have robbed before, they might have killed before, they might have committed fraudulent offenses. We would like to know so that we can be on the alert. And I think that's a reasonable request for our countries to be making. And the fourth point is that as far as is practicable, it would be helpful if the sending country would consider favorably any material assistance to facilitate the reintegration of deportees or persons who have been repatriated, particularly persons who have been in say, the United States or Canada or Britain for a prolonged period of time. I think if we are just calm and patient in relation to these particular principles and their application, that we ought very sensibly to work with those authorities from those countries which are deporting or repatriating. Because if we deport or repatriate anybody from our country, I would expect that we'd apply the same set of principles. Now, so the two nativist or nationalist dimensions are those connected to these tariffs and the ramping up of the deportation or repatriation. If those were the only two dimensions of the political response or the policy responses of this nationalist or nativist wing of monopoly capitalism, things would be difficult, but not crippling. Where we have what happens, and historically we have seen this, when you have actions like the deportations and the actions like the tariffs, it has been historically been associated with bullying of countries which are smaller, which are weaker, which are militarily way inferior, and which do not have the economic strength. And that is a dimension that we have seen already being used in the current period, but it is also a historical phenomenon which we have witnessed. Of course, as in the physical sciences, when you have an action, you're going to have a reaction. And already we have seen a reaction across the world. But the reaction across the world at the moment has been disorganized. The response has been inchoate and there has not been a coherence to the response. And the responses, of course, would vary. Canadians would want a different kind of a deal or settlement with the Americans. So too the Europeans. The Chinese would wish a different one. But in the midst of all these things, the nativist wing of the capital, of monopoly capital, would want to settle some scores, and they may want to settle them against places like Cuba, Venezuela, or the Latin American and Caribbean countries, African countries. How do we resist all of this? We have to be very clear-sighted, and we have to work together more closely and ramp up things which we should have been doing together more and have not been doing them. And I heard Nicholas spoke to the question of the actual matter of the air transport and marine transport for us to get that more coordinated and better. We need also to make linkages in those countries with our nationals and with other groups who would want to work with us, including persons, including persons who are monopoly capitalists, but who do not necessarily have this nativist outlook, and to work with people, ordinary people, working people, reliable people who have a basic decency about them. Again, historically, we have seen that. I don't accept that at the moment that what we are seeing in the United States has degenerated to fascism. I see it is an escalation of nativism, because we have seen that the courts, the level of the courts are doing certain things. People are using their rights, certain rights under the Constitution. And that's the stage where we are. That may well change, but that's the stage at which we are. But that has to be monitored very closely. We have to not exaggerate the threat, but we must never underestimate it, and we must have a realistic assessment. Now, we have the ALBA project. We need to accelerate that. But we have to accelerate that in tandem with the marine transport, the sea transport, as we build also with the air transport. Now, it has always been part of ALBA's quest to strengthen our cooperation on applied science and technology. And while it is important for us to have institutions which can help to coordinate our work. In fact, 2 years ago in Cuba, less than 2 years ago in Cuba, there was a conference at the Non-Aligned Summit. There was a Non-Aligned Summit dealing precisely with this question. And it is an item on the agenda for CELAC and also for us, the question of the use of applied science and technology. And apart from the issues of taking advantage of the research which is available and the technologies which are available, something which we are very sadly lacking in my view. It's better in some of our members than in others. But in our educational system, even when we are teaching applied science and technology, we seem to be teaching applied science and technology in relation to yesterday as distinct from tomorrow and the future. And we may well be training our young people insufficiently in the area of cutting edge science and technology. And I see that this issue has come up again, and specifically on the agenda in respect of artificial intelligence. But we come back to things which we know as to what our response is. We have to be in solidarity with one another, cooperate meaningfully on specific actions, and to hold aloft in our work the fundamental tenets which are laid down in the Charter of the United Nations, defense of our sovereignty and of our independence. And always to work as best as we can through the multilateral system and promote that. And to go for peace rather than war. And we have to make sure that all the institutions, all the regional institutions to which we belong, including ALBA and CELAC, among others, of course, CARICOM and the OECS, that we work in a more coordinated way. This is going to require careful thinking, practical application of matters which are achievable, and we have to build as far as is practically, as far as it is practicable within our domestic societies, a consensus as to how we should do our work. It's a difficult and complicated time. And we may well be looking at modern manifestations of the unfolding of social and political and economic phenomena reminiscent of the 1930s. We cannot underestimate what is happening. We must not overestimate, but the signs are not good. But we must never be pessimistic, nor never permit ourselves to be enveloped in learned helplessness. We have to build those alliances.
in this complicated world, and to do so sometimes with fresh thinking, which would take us away from old modes of operation. And I think we should have more of these conversations for ALBA-TCP by Zoom. We should have more frequent ones so that we can keep in touch and to better give the political push to many things which we have agreed upon. Thank you.
Bueno, muchas gracias a nuestro gurú.
Well, thank you very much to our guru, our guide, Ralph Gonsalves, the great Ralph Gonsalves. And of course, we have written down all of your guidelines, your wisdom. And yes, I agree. The projects go hand in hand, growing jointly, advance, build in union, unity in action, and for action with results, and action for unity. It is like a perfect formula. So we can solve structural issues of the development of our countries. As Gervasio Artigas says, we shall not expect anything but ourselves. Let's continue advancing and moving forward to build powerful bases for a functional and integrated economy in times in which the great blocs are configuring a world that some called a multipolar, but I call it a multicentric and pluripolar world. We are building a new world without hegemony, without the empire, the world of equality, as President Xi Jinping says from China. We must build with humanity or humankind a community with a shared destiny. So we must have an America, an American continent that is united in actions. None of us can go through the path of development with a guaranteed path if we act by ourselves. We will soon see that the 21st century belongs to us. We must believe in that. So, Ralph Gonsalves has also talked about applied sciences. And I was discussing with Jorge Arreaza, since we had the great opportunity of sharing with Fidel and Chavez, they insisted in the importance of applied sciences. They told me that they are scientists that are wise and spend their days only publishing some papers or articles in renowned magazines. And he said, yes, it is great. You should continue publishing your papers, but we must use that knowledge to address the issues related to food, to healthcare. And this was part of our discussions because we were very fortunate to talk about this with Fidel, and Chavez also said this. The character of using applied sciences and applied knowledge for addressing our needs. And we must do so. So we should never expect anything from anyone except for ourselves. Here we also have our colleague Roosevelt Skerritt, with whom we continue working in this agenda. We recently had a conversation, so I would like to give the floor to the Commonwealth of Dominica. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Comrade Chairman, President Nicolas Maduro of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, the President of the Republic of Cuba, and of course, the Caracas, and Bolivia, my colleague prime ministers, friends all. I'm happy to be here. I'm also in the presence of two other Dominicans, the ambassador of Cuba to Dominica and the ambassador of Venezuela to Dominica. They are extraordinary representatives of their respective countries, and they're part of us here in Dominica. I endorse all what has been said, and I take particular note of what my comrade Prime Minister indicated in regards to paying attention to the political side of things. I believe, and just to say from the onset, Mr. President, ALBA Dominica is in full support, and we'll proceed to sign this agreement and discuss with your technical people all the technical details. In respect to the AI Institute that you have articulated, this is an urgency, and it's very important that we ourselves play our part in managing the new phenomenon of AI. And of course, marine and air transportation are all crucial towards the success of the many initiatives that we've been working on within ALBA. So we are fully in support of those. My intervention today will be very short. And just to say that the present realities of the world is a reminder of why we are in existence as ALBA. Nothing that is happening today is anything new. President Chavez and President Castro always anticipated those realities. This is why they created ALBA, so that we could have our own opportunities to dialogue among ourselves, to be mindful of the challenges, and to define solutions, collective solutions to the collective challenges which we face. No one country on this Zoom is going to be able to overcome the challenges that the world that we currently face. It's going to require an extraordinary dedication to solidarity, to cooperation, and the development of political strategies. We need to have more political engagement. And you know, Mr. President, when we were in Caracas in December, we spent about an hour and a half among ourselves, speaking privately. And each of us had the opportunity to share with each other the realities in our countries. And I believe each of us left this meeting with a renewed sense of commitment to each other, because we had an opportunity to better understand the realities of our countries and how can we work together towards overcoming those challenges. And so what I would like to see going forward is, as I agree, there should be more frequent meetings. But those meetings should also focus on politics, not party politics as we know it with political campaigns, but how do we strategize from a political standpoint among ourselves to overcome those challenges. We have a lot to learn from Cuba. How has Cuba been able to survive, notwithstanding the challenges? How has Cuba been able to be so innovative in the face of persecution? Venezuela, we have the highest respect and admiration for President Nicolas Maduro and the United Socialist Party of Venezuela and the Bolivarian Revolution. That you will have been able to survive this unrelenting persecution. We ourselves in the Caribbean, albeit at lower levels than you have been exposed to. Nicaragua, how has President Ortega been able to survive all of his years? And more so in recent times. And so President Ortega will tell you the challenges he had in the 1970s and the 80s and the 90s and now are the same. It's just a different personality you're dealing with. But the reality is the system is the same. The structure is the same. What Mr. Trump is doing is nothing different from what Obama did. Trump is just verbalizing it. And so we have to make the time to discuss the politics and political strategies. How do we counteract? How do we ensure that our space in this world is protected? Our right to self-determination is protected. Our right to assemble as ALBA and Petro-Caribbean, all of the other groupings that we have are protected. And so it's going to require a profound sense of commitment to each other. For me, the economic issues, the investments and so forth, these are secondary to the real challenges we face. And so I want to respectfully urge that we create the opportunities away from the cameras. We don't need all of this staff, all of this protocol, and we meet with t-shirt and jeans, and we discuss and strategize on this. This is what, from my respectful standpoint, comrades, is required now more than ever, because the reality is there are leaders in this world who we would have expected more from a political ideology standpoint, from a principle standpoint, and we no longer have them. They've been lost to different perspectives. And so the reality is, those of you on this Zoom meeting, the presidents and prime ministers who are here today, fortunately or unfortunately, the burden is on your shoulders to ensure that those who cannot speak have a voice. And this is what Chavez did for us. And this is what Fidel did for us for so long. He was able to say things on our behalf that we were not able to say. And they were able to say things and do things on our behalf that we couldn't do. And therefore we owe it to the current and succeeding generations to do the same unto them that were done unto us by Chavez and Fidel. And so it's a huge task, but we need to commit ourselves. I can say to you, from Dominica's standpoint, from my personal standpoint, I'm dedicating my time and my being to this effort of meeting and consolidating our ideas, consolidating our perspectives, and to ensure that we are strong and we are committed to each other and to this institution of ALBA. Because ALBA is the only such institution existing which is concerned and preoccupied with the real issues confronting our people. And so we have no choice but to remain committed to this. And so I'm happy to be here this afternoon and to say that time is not on our side. We have to ensure that we do what we have to do. Because the reality is, comrades, it is but a few days. We have more years to come. And we should expect the rhetoric to get more inflamed and the actions to be more obnoxious and challenging. But we have survived thus far. And I'm sure we will survive because we're not prepared to compromise or negotiate our principles. Our solidarity with each other cannot be sold or bought. We're not for sale. And no one, we will cooperate, we'll collaborate. We live in a world and we believe in multilateralism. We are prepared to speak and to engage with any entity, any country, but they also have to respect our sovereignty. They have to respect our right to self-determination, and they have to respect the makeup of our countries, the political makeup of our countries, and the constitution of our countries. And so I will end here to say thank you, Comrade President, for convening this meeting, and rest assured on all of the points that have been articulated today, Dominica is in full support. Thank you very much.
We have been watching the 12th Extraordinary ALBA-TCP Summit. The heads of states and government addressed the current geopolitical situation in the region and set out a roadmap to overcome today's challenges. In the meeting, different heads of states have been present and already expressed different opinions, and they come together to work and continue working on the agenda to move forward for the 2030 ALBA-TCP agenda progress for the development of the nations. For example, the president of Cuba, Miguel Diaz-Canel, condemned the inclusion of Cuba in the list of nations that sponsor terrorism, which was done by the new administration in the states of Donald Trump, and condemned this inclusion as it's done without any evidence and without any progress to see what is happening. Also, they were also talking about the different strategies that can be done to move forward in the production of food, like is the program of AgroAlba, which different countries have already expressed, or ALBA member countries have expressed their support for this initiative, which is intended to produce healthy food, not only for the region, for the whole world, as well as nations in Africa, as President of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, was saying. Today, there are many sectors that are trying to put all these chemicals on the food that is produced and is giving a result of illness, different illness and cancer. That's why this project of AgroAlba is being promoted. President Nicolas Maduro, as well as the other nations, have expressed their support for the applied sciences, and they have been promoting the creation of an international research center for the development of AI. All the different leaders, Miguel Diaz-Canel from Cuba, Luis Arce from Bolivia, Daniel Ortega from Nicaragua, Nicolas Maduro from Venezuela, they have been all talking about how ALBA is the only one in the region that have been referring to this issue to bring it together in unison and to move forward in this direction, as they see AI to have great potential for the development in different fields like health, productivity, and different aspects. But also they warn of the mismanagement of this, that this technology can have, that it can be the loss of employment and all these different related issues that arise from technology. That's why they are promoting this international research center, so that the region as a whole can work on this issue together and continue working for the prosperity of the people. As we were saying, this is the 12th Extraordinary Summit that is being held in a context of a lot of disturbances in the geopolitical field. One of the main topics that have been on the table on this Extraordinary Summit has been the issue of migration, especially with the latest decisions taken by the US President Donald Trump, and with the deportation of thousands of migrants, violating the humanitarian rights of these people, which have been deported in deplorable conditions. So all the different leaders of this ALBA-TCP have been referring that they have to continue working to protect the humanity, the human rights of all these people that have been deported by the government of the United States. Different issues that have been on the table that different heads of states and government have been addressing: the issue of migration, the issue of sanctions, which have been condemned, which has been, like President Maduro described, has been at the core of one of the main reasons that, in this case, Venezuela have left the country and migrated to other places due to the battery of sanctions. We must remember that the U.S. has hundreds and hundreds of sanctions imposed on Venezuela, which harm very drastically the economic life of the country, making people to leave the country and find other opportunities abroad. And in this case, President Maduro was referring to the program Return to the Homeland, which for a couple of years now have been successful in repatriating successfully the Venezuelans back to the country and to guarantee them a dignified way of life and work opportunities and related topics on this issue. Also, in this case of migration, President of Cuba, Miguel Diaz-Canel, also had some words, and he was referring to how the U.S. policy towards Cuban migration is intended to promote the illegal migration from the island, as the U.S. gives a privileged status to Cubans who migrate from Cuba to the States, and also, of course, the very harmful impact that the U.S. blockade, which has been enforced for more than 6 decades now on the country, on the island, begins to. Let's continue listening to the summit.
And tell you that St. Lucia stands firmly behind cooperation, coordination, so collectively we can deal with the problems that confront us. It's not going to be easy, but all of us want the development of our people. That is what we want. And we'll try our best to face these problems, because as it is clearly shown, the forces against us are only getting stronger, and their purpose is to possibly divide us so we can lose focus. So I want to join with solidarity with the government people of Venezuela. And I want to tell you that we are strong members of CELAC. We'll continue our membership in CELAC so that we can deal with the problems that will confront us. I thank you very much for inviting me, and St. Lucia will be a part of the forward march to improve the quality of life of our people. I thank you.
We continue watching the images of the live feed of the 12th Extraordinary Summit of ALBA-TCP Heads of States and Governments. As we were referring, the leaders have been discussing different issues, and one of the main ones that have been on the table has been migration, especially in the context of the thousands and thousands of deportations being carried out by the U.S. government in the past weeks. But also a topic that has been on the table has been the history, as President Daniel Ortega from Nicaragua brought forward, the history of U.S. colonialism that has targeted the region as a whole, Latin American region as a whole, and the Caribbean, and how the country, the region, the nations of the country cannot ever go back to that instance in history and to continue moving forward. As he said, the region might not be as powerful military, but has a more powerful weapons than all weapons combined, and is that in unity, action in unity was his expression to work together and to face the challenges that the region is facing currently together and create strategies to move forward with these movements, which is why also President Nicolas Maduro has called for the empowerment once again of integrational blocks in the region, like the case of CELAC, and also to continue creating different strategies, different programs for the development. And for this is going to be as well involved the ALBA Bank is going to be in this issue, helping with the funding of different projects to move forward with the creation of wealth and prosperity. And one of the topics that has been on this discussion has been the agro alba, which is a program to increase productivity and to ensure the self-sustainability of food for the region, which not only the reach of this program is not only for Latin America and the Caribbean, also for Africa as well, to tackle this crisis of hunger and to ensure that the region as a whole can continue to develop in prosperity. Different heads of states have taken the floor in this 12th extraordinary meeting, like is in the case of Raf Gonsalva, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which warned during his intervention, warned of a surge in nationalist and populist factions in what he described monopoly capitalism, like putting as an example the MAGA movement in the United States and all the policies that have been coming from that far-right sector of policy. Let's listen to President Nicolas Maduro.
All these all these ideas in a simple language that could be understood by our people. With the various interventions, we are making proposals to move forward regarding migration, the respect towards our migrants, the respect to their human rights, that the international standards are complied with, so they are deported in a safe manner. And as already indicated in various of the statements, we need to help migrants so they are fully integrated in our economies. There have been also a proposal to create within ALBA Bank a fund to assist the returning migrants, returning in the proper conditions mentioned by ALBA. There has been also a proposal to conduct a joint investigation to dismantle the criminal gangs of coyotes that are trafficking in people and making money on the back of these migrants and using migration as a political tool. And today, with the dismantling of the USAID body, how this body has been used to thieve, to rob many resources. how Guaido used to obtain millions to preserve the Miami lobby, a permanent lobby to continue attacking Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua, and other independent countries of the region. There is also a proposal to hold an agro-ALBA fair. This could be organized perhaps in Cuba, Nicaragua, Bolivia. This fair will enable to reach concrete plans for food production, ALBA and space for food independence. And brothers and sisters, we should task our transport ministers to lift all the obstacles to have the intra-ALBA transport network. The ALBA Bank has found the resources, and we are purchasing a big ship, which is a collective ownership of ALBA, to transport food with refrigeration capabilities. And an airplane, for instance, we had an airplane that belonged to ALBA. It belonged to Venezuela, but as ALBA members, it was also an ALBA airplane, and this airplane was dismantled. So we cannot forget the aggressions. When we're just talking to Joe Biden, in the midst of this conversation, our airplane was dismantled. Now we are negotiating a cargo plane to transport merchandises, etc. So we're going to give you details about this project. So the idea also is to have a fishing fleet to integrate our airlines and integrate our airlines with other airlines in order to foster tourism, connection, etc.
Valga la expresión, para la activación práctica
And
del
also, we need to put in practice the investigation center for AI, a center for AI application within ALBA. Our Minister Loyo is also proposing the idea of ALBA Blue, dealing with the fishing fleet and agriculture. We're going to disseminate these proposals. We're going to circulate them so you are familiar with the tenets of these proposals. It's a very good proposal, and I think it's going to be very useful. And dear brothers and sisters, Prime Minister, President, we would like also to set a date, the first week in March, March the 2nd, to see where we can organize a meeting, special meeting of ministers, with the foreign ministers, with the ministers of agriculture, fishing, transport, energy, trade, science, technology. The first week in March,
to address the conclusions and to sign the documents and action plans in all these topics of the agenda that we have proposed for today's meeting. So these are some of the notes we have taken, but I would like to know if someone else would like to add something.
We have a special statement with 8 items that is being discussed, a special statement for dignity of migrants of Latin America and the Caribbean. And the General Secretariat our General Secretariat is going to discuss or present this proposal to the various countries so we reach a consensus and we then convey this document once it's been approved. So I would like to know if someone else wishes to take the floor. So in this very practical and operational meeting to take stock of the decisions of December, well, since no one is asking the floor, requesting the floor, the General Secretariat, along with the foreign ministries, today they're going to put together all these proposals. They're going to present the consensus reached on these topics so we continue moving forward in order to deepen the unity among our peoples, nations, and continue taking concrete actions, always united, always. 20 years have elapsed, 20 years and 6 weeks. And we've gone through all difficult situations and we've been able to address them in a victorious fashion. We've been able to address them as a unified and single force. Truth is on our side with the deepest of love to address this historical moment, a historical moment of rebirth of the ideas of truly free nations, proud of our history, proud of our path, proud of our leaders and symbols, and so proud of our peoples. ALBA is a world champion of patriotism of the region, world champion of courage. And as we say in Venezuela, I do not know if we're going to find the right word in English, world champion of truth, courage, and we continue moving forward. Thank you very much, comrades. God bless our peoples. God should unite us even more. Greetings to all of you, and we need to see you soon. To victory forever. ALBA forever. Long live ALBA forever.
We were listening to the summit, the 12th Extraordinary Summit of Heads of States and Government of ALBA-TCP. This Monday, February 3rd, the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our American Peoples Trade Treaty held this summit where the different heads of states came together to discuss the current situation, what is happening in the current geopolitical scenario, different challenges that they are facing, taking into account which have been on the main topic, the migration, the development of technologies like in the case of AI, as well as to denounce and condemn the interventionist policies of the U.S. government, in this case led by the new administration of Donald Trump and all its right political policies that have been implemented against Cuba, like in the case of the reincorporation of the island on the list of nations sponsoring terrorism. Different leaders have come together to propose different projects and different programs on how to move forward with the support of the ALBA Bank, which will provide the necessary fund
to little by little continue working in this project in the 2030 agenda of ALBA-TCP, which the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro said it was completely up to date to face the current challenges that the region is facing. And they talk about the promotion of this international research center to be established so that all the member states and regional countries can come together and work together in the development of artificial intelligence of the region to help promote, as the leader said, this technology can have lots of benefits in the sector of health, productivity, in education, but also taking into account the humanistic factor and also warning against the counterside, the side effects of these technologies, which can be a large unemployment, and saying always, as people has always said about technology, it's not about the technology but about the use that is given to said technology. They were also promoting an important new program which is referred to as ALBA, which is the purpose of increasing productivity for the production of healthy food for the region, and also even going as far as to Africa. Stay tuned with teleSUR English for more updates. We will have more information of this important extraordinary summit of ALBA-TCP on our channels and all different social media. Stay tuned with teleSUR for more.